Molini, and welcome to the Conversations with NKOSI YouTube channel. NKOSI, your host Guysini, and welcome to my channel.
In today's video, we are going to be talking about the demise of the South African post offices as 400 branches shut down. Now, before I get into today's video, let me read one of many articles, and then from there, we're going to continue. Now, this is one of many. This is an article that was published on the 3rd of August this year on the Business Tech website, right? Now, the title goes, "Here's how many post offices have been forced to close down in South Africa." Now, the South African Post Office has been in financial distress for years, which has resulted in hundreds of post offices being forced to close since 2020, resulting in thousands of jobs lost. Despite this, the South African Post Office has revised billions to stay afloat and has recently been placed under business rescue. The South African Post Office has historically been bailed out with billions of rands, according to Communications Minister Utatu Mondli Gungubele. The Public Postal Service received 7.3 billion rand between 2016 and 2019, which effectively did nothing to turn the embattled South African post offices around. Now, SAPO was placed under provincial liquidation in April 2023, with the company owing billions of rands to its creditors. It was placed under provisional liquidation following a successful court application by a creditor who was owed money for rent. Despite this, the government is adamant that the South African Post Office is an essential service that provides vital services throughout the country, especially in remote areas where the South African Post Office is often the main link between people in South Africa. It uses its countrywide footprint to render such services as the distribution of social grants at its branches, distribution of the medication to those in need, various national and international postal services, etc., said Enoch Godo, I don't know what. The former acting Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies. As a result, the government approached the court to oppose the final liquidation of the post office, instead arguing for it to be put into business rescue. The government budgeted a 2.4 billion rands bailout for SAPO and has pledged an additional 3.8 billion rands. Despite this, the bankrupt state-owned enterprise has closed 316 branches since the start of 2020. This was revealed by Gungubele in response to a parliamentary Q&A where he outlined the number of closures, including since 1 April 2023. A total of 22 branches were officially closed during the 2020-21 financial year. In addition, 2 branches were closed due to landlords' forced closures because of rental areas. He said a total of 146 branches were officially closed during the 2021-22 financial year, while a total of 122 branches have been closed during the 2022-23 financial year, with 58 branches as part of amalgamations, optimization of the branch network. He added, a total of 24 branches have been closed since the 1st of April 2023. The South African Post Office has been consistently losing taxpayer money for several years, leading to job cuts and branch closures. Its liabilities exceeded assets by 4 billion rands with a debt of 8 billion rands. What's more, around 6,000 employees accounting for 40% of the workforce have been retrenched due to financial constraints. The South African Post Office high wage bill and competition from the private courier companies has made its business unsustainable. Furthermore, SAPO's business rescue proceedings are now set to put a further 7,000 jobs at risk as the embattled state-owned entity is planning to save 1.3 billion in annual salaries. No post office executives in South Africa have been penalized for their use of funds intended for state-owned enterprises recovery initiative. No one was brought to book for the non-investment of monies to implement a turnaround as the usage was linked to the cash flow situation, said Udato Gungubele. The funds were utilized for operating activities, repayment of terms, loans, and creditors as the severity of the cash flow situation at SAPO intensified. They kept maintaining operations under difficult financial challenges and accumulated debts in the process, the minister said. The past funding allocations, which were intended to invest in the turnaround strategy, ended up being depleted by operations and debts as the severity of the financial challenges intensified, he added. Now, this is an article on Business Tech. I'm sure you're wondering, I'm mentioning 316 and then all of a sudden 400. What's popping? Let's get into it, guys. But I just had to touch on, just share from this article so that you can see where we are coming from. Because more than anything, we are concerned as a nation, as a people, we're worried. Especially now that we know, I mean, if the minister himself mentioned that none of the executives from the South African Post Office are even being, called into order or held accountable, it tells you something about the state, the state of urgency that surrounds this matter. Let me stop wasting any more time and let us get into today's video. What is SAPO? Well, SAPO is an abbreviation for South African Post Office. Now, it happens to be the National Postal Service of South Africa, a state-owned enterprise with its only shareholder being the South African government. According to South African law, the post office is the only entity that is legally allowed to accept reserved mail, thus operating as a monopoly. It was founded on the 1st of October in the year 1991. What could have led to the demise of the South African Post Office? Well, the South African Post Office has always been a vital institution in the country that provides nationwide postal services to citizens. However, in recent years, SAPO has experienced significant challenges, which has led to the demise of the post office and the closure of plus minus 400 branches. By investigating the underlying reasons for this decline, we get to explore the consequences of these branch closures and also what led to it. Now, at number 1, we have financial struggles. According to an article uploaded in the news section of the South African Parliament website, the South African Post Office is under severe financial constraints as its liabilities continue to exceed its assets. To date, employee compensation cost stands at 1.7 billion, accounting for 62% of its total accumulated expenditure of 2.6 billion rands, and against collective revenue of 1.3 billion in the current financial year. SAPO debt to creditors is 4.927 billion rands. So dire is the situation that SAPO owes money to the South African receiver of revenue and cannot pay service providers nor landlords. It has also been forced to close many of its branches, said the General Manager of Strategic Planning at the South African Post Office, Mr. Gert Batali or Gert Batali. If I mispronounced it, I am so sorry, Mr. B, but I tried. Now, when asked by Mr. Nsube about the current leaders of the South African Post Office's contribution to the demise, Mr. Mapulane responded by pointing out that the current problems are historical and cannot be blamed on the current board. as the number of months they were in office were too short. He went on to give a broad overview of SAPO's problems, saying it had failed to adjust to new market trends, losing market share and value. There was also a problem of ghost employees receiving a salary, which is now being dealt with. SAPO's Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Nomkhita Mona, assured committee members that an employee authentication process they put in place saved SAPO 8 million rands. SAPO is said to have enlisted the services of an external forensic entity to continue with this authentication process. Now, this entails that a worker who failed to authenticate themselves will be regarded as a ghost employee and will not be able to receive their salary. Mr. Mapulane called on the committee to exercise its legislative mandate to ensure that the South African Post Office turnaround strategy is funded. Chairperson Mkiva replied that the South African Post Office had the committee's support as it serves South Africa's marginalized communities. Something must be done to preserve this entity because we know what would happen if it were to collapse, said Mr. Mkiva. One of the primary reasons for the closures of the South African Post Office's branches is the organization's ongoing financial struggle. Despite being a state-owned enterprise, SAPO has faced financial instability due to declining revenues from traditional postal services. Factors contributing to these financial challenges include increasing competition from alternative communication platforms and a decrease in letter mail volumes. It is disappointing to learn about this discussion, which was held in the year 2022, yet no solutions were presented nor put in place to deal with the issues raised and faced by the South African Post Office. The closure of these branches is something the state could have prevented, guys, but it chose not to, despite knowing how the country's marginalized rely on the services offered by the South African Post Office. At number 2, we have changing consumer preferences. Now, the rise of digital communication platforms such as email, social media, and instant messaging has significantly impacted consumer preferences for traditional postal services. As individuals increasingly rely on electronic communication methods, the demand for postal services has declined. Ms. Mona mentioned that the South African Post Office was on the verge of securing an e-commerce partnership with a leading member of the global postal industry. She acknowledged the fact that the times were changing and so were the preferences of the people, but that did not demotivate her. In fact, it fueled her advocacy and that of her department, obviously, and that of the institution that she represented, for better funding that would help reintroduce the South African Post Office to citizens and the e-commerce space. If it can be funded, we can unlock the South African Post Office's e-commerce space, financial technology, logistics, capabilities, courier and freight potential, among others that would enable it to reclaim its market share, she said. Now, to achieve this government intervention would be a requirement. Ms. Mona admitted that without a government bailout, the South African Post Office may never be able to meet its statutory obligations. At number 3, we have technological advancements. Now, the advent of technological advancements has revolutionized the way we people communicate, reducing the need for physical mail with the widespread availability of internet access and smartphones. Individuals can now communicate instantly and conveniently with others. Technological advancements have played a significant role in the decline of traditional postal services, ultimately leading to the closure of various branches of the South African Post Office. To fully understand the decline of traditional postal services, we ought to look at the rapid growth of digital communication platforms such as email, instant messaging, and social media. These platforms have transformed the way we communicate, making it faster, more convenient, and cost-effective. Why send a letter when you can send an email within seconds? The convenience of digital communication has also led to a decline in the demand for postal services. Many individuals and businesses now rely on electronic communication for everything from sending documents and invoices to personal messages. Consequently, the volume of mail being sent through traditional postal services has significantly decreased. However, the impact of technology goes beyond just communication. E-commerce has boomed in recent years, with more and more people turning to online platforms to shop for goods and services. This shift has led to a surge in package deliveries, but traditional postal services have struggled to keep up with the fast-paced demands of the e-commerce industry. One of the key challenges faced by traditional postal services is last kilometer delivery. Last kilometer delivery refers to the final step in the delivery process, where a package is transported from a distribution center to the recipient's doorstep. With the rise of e-commerce, there has been an exponential increase in last kilometer deliveries, and technology has played a vital role in optimizing this process. Many e-commerce companies have developed their own delivery networks or partnered with specialized logistic providers. Now, these providers utilize advanced technologies such as GPS tracking and route optimization software to ensure efficient and timely deliveries. This level of precision and convenience has become the new standard for customers, pushing traditional postal services to adapt or face obsolescence. Another significant factor contributing to the decline of traditional postal services is the rise of online bill payment systems and digital banking. One significant challenge faced by the South African Post Office is financial pressure. The decline in mail volume, coupled with increased competition from technology-driven logistics providers, has led to a decline in revenue for the South African Post Office to maintain its extensive network of branches, thus leading to a closure of branches. At number 4, we have inefficient operations. Another major contributing factor to the closure of South African post office branches is the organization's inefficiency to operate fully. Reports of mismanagement, corruption, and outdated infrastructure have plagued the organization, compromising its ability to adapt and compete in the modern era. The South African Post Office's outdated infrastructure and lack of investment in modernizing technology and equipment has contributed to its decline. As technology rapidly advances, traditional postal services are expected to keep up with the pace of innovation to maintain their relevance and competitiveness. Unfortunately, the South African Post Office's limited financial resources have delayed necessary updates and upgrades, further hindering its ability to adapt and thrive in the digital era. My apologies. I'm baffled, like I am shook, mainly because the conversation around its transformation, its innovation, the upgrades has been ongoing for the past 5 years, if not more than that. And nothing has happened despite money being pumped into the South African Post Office. And yet there is nothing, not even a pinch of modernization, not even a small tint of any change or transformation. This is scary. It literally is. Before I go off topic, let's continue. At number 5, we have social and economic impact. The closure of the South African Post Office branches has far-reaching social and economic consequences. Now, the closure of these branches has had far-reaching consequences on individuals and businesses. For many communities, the local post office served as more than just a place to send and receive mail. It was a hub of social interaction, a meeting point, and a symbol of community resilience. With the closure of these branches, people are left with fewer accessible services and a diminished sense of community. This closure will impact small businesses as well, especially those without access to reliable internet connections or adequate courier services. Now, while technological advancements have undoubtedly offered incredible convenience and efficiency, it is also crucial to identify and remember the importance of balance. We must find a way to harness technology while ensuring that essential services like postal services continue to be accessible to all. In closing, as 400 South African post office branches permanently close their doors, this will also leave its employees without a job, thus increasing the unemployment rate. From financial struggles and changing consumer preferences to technological advancements and inefficiencies in operations, the South African Post Office has had to confront a multitude of issues. It is crucial for the South African Post Office to adapt to these changes by embracing digital transformation, improving operational efficiency, and exploring innovative ways to meet the changing needs of its customers. To avoid an increase in the number of branches whose doors are being shut down, the South African Post Office can actually revitalize its services. They can enhance their financial stability and ensure the provision of reliable postal services across the country, unless this is all a deliberate act to destroy state-owned enterprises to pave way for private companies to come in and frustrate us. With that being said, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that you found today's video informative and insightful. Yes, I did do my research, hence I ended up rounding off the number to 400 branches, right? This information is easily accessible. You can actually look up the demise of the South African Post Office. So just punch in the South African Post Office and you will be greeted by a number of articles about this. From the moment a problem was actually picked up and a trend to where we are now, you'll definitely come across these articles. Without wasting any more time, please do check out the NKOSI Writes blog. The article is also there, which is the written version of what I presented to you guys today, and also the Conversations with NKOSI podcast via Spotify or Apple Podcasts. The version that just has no visuals. Okay. With that being said, thank you so much. Also, let me stop thanking you and just pause and stop this video right here and now. But before I do that, I don't know if you guys are seeing this thing, but there's a scary trend of state-owned enterprises going downhill in the country. And yet again, it's not a matter of urgency. There's nothing scary or shocking about this, which is very, very weird for the new dawn, if you ask me.
NKOSI once again for lending an ear and your eyes. Now do not forget to click on that subscribe button, light the notification bell so that you do not miss out on any of our new uploads. Diyanithanda kakhulu zithandwa.